The vast council chamber was a place of grandeur and power. Its walls were adorned with alien artifacts, glowing softly with an eerie light. The high-ranking leaders of the alien empire sat in their elaborate chairs, their eyes glowing with an unsettling, almost arrogant gleam. Their empire had conquered countless worlds, and Earth, despite its potential, was nothing but a tiny speck in the galaxy. As far as they were concerned, Earth was unworthy of notice, and its defenses were laughable at best. Among the alien leaders, there was one particularly smug commander. His sharp, angular face twisted into a mocking smile as he surveyed the holographic display of Earth's old relic fleet. With an almost condescending laugh, he gestured toward the images of the warships. "These outdated vessels, they cannot possibly challenge us. Our fleet will tear them apart before they even have time to power up their weapons. These relics are nothing but rusting tombs. This is a slaughter waiting to happen." The other commanders joined in, their laughter echoing through the chamber. They had no respect for the humans or their fleet. Their ships were old, relics from a forgotten time. To the aliens, it seemed almost laughable that humans would try to defend their homeworld with such outdated technology. But the commander's laughter stopped for a moment as he considered the human race. The humans had managed to survive for centuries against forces far greater than themselves, and he couldn't quite shake the feeling that there was something about them. Something unpredictable. Yet the thought passed quickly. After all, their fleet was no match for the might of his empire. While the alien commanders reveled in their superiority, one figure stood alone in the shadows of a warship far from their reach. Captain James Hawkins of the U.S. Valiant stared out at the stars, his face set in a hard, unwavering expression. He had heard the same mockery that had come from the alien commanders, and it filled him with a quiet resolve. He knew what they didn't. The U.S. Valiant and its fleet of relic ships still had one weapon the aliens could never predict. They had something that the alien empire, no matter how powerful, could never understand: human willpower. The U.S. Valiant was no ordinary relic ship. While it was old, its crew had spent countless hours breathing life back into it, refurbishing and rearming the vessel with the latest technology available. The ship's engines, once cold and silent, were now purring with life, and the weapons, once dormant, were now fully charged. Captain Hawkins had been in the military long enough to know that the odds were stacked against them, but he also knew that humans had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. There was no room for fear, no room for doubt. The time to fight had come. He wasn't going to let these aliens take Earth without a fight, no matter how outmatched they were. As the camera zoomed out from Hawkins' stern face, the U.S. Valiant came into full view, drifting silently in the cold void of space. The ship's once formidable appearance had begun to show its age, but it still carried an undeniable presence. A warship forged in the heat of battle, its hull marked with scars from past conflicts, its weapons primed and ready. The human crew worked tirelessly in the background, repairing and upgrading the ship's systems. There was no time to waste. Every minute counted. The faint hum of the engines, now awake, echoed through the ship's vast halls, signaling that the time had come to prepare for war. Hawkins could feel the weight of the moment. Earth was on the edge of destruction, but he would not allow it to fall. The countdown to war had already begun, and there was no turning back. On the bridge of the U.S. Valiant, the tension was palpable. Officers were moving quickly, checking systems, communicating with other ships in the fleet. The old warships, relics of the past, were no longer just ancient vessels. They were humanity's last line of defense. The camera cut to a group of engineers, their faces smeared with grease and sweat, working feverishly to bring the ship's weapons online. They weren't as advanced as the alien machines, but they had something the aliens didn't: resourcefulness. Every spark, every buzz of machinery was a reminder that the relic fleet still had some fight left in it. Out in the vastness of space, the alien fleet was already moving toward Earth. Thousands of ships, sleek and powerful, glided through the stars with precision and grace. They had no fear, no hesitation. They were the future, the unstoppable force. Earth's defenses would crumble beneath their might. This mission was nothing more than a formality to them. But the U.S. Valiant was not done yet. Its engines roared to life as the final systems powered up. The ship's hull vibrated with energy, ready to face the alien threat head-on. Captain Hawkins stood tall in the command chair, his gaze locked on the holographic display of the approaching enemy fleet. His hands were steady as he issued commands to his crew, preparing them for what was to come. He knew the chances were slim, but humanity had never been a species to give up. He wouldn't start now. The countdown to war was now just moments away. The alien fleet, vast and overwhelming, loomed ever closer. Earth's Relic fleet, old, outdated, but filled with the determination of human spirit, prepared to fight back with everything they had. The scene was set. The aliens believed their victory was certain. They thought they were facing an easy conquest, but in the shadows of their overconfidence, there was something they didn't account for. The humans might be the underdogs, but they had a power the aliens would never understand. Their will to fight. Their will to survive. The U.S. Valiant and its crew weren't just going to fight to defend Earth. They were going to fight to prove that even against the might of the galaxy, humanity could still stand strong. The Relic fleet was not just a collection of old ships. It was a symbol of humanity's unyielding resolve. The alien commanders had no idea what they were up against. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The aliens would soon learn that they had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated the power of the human spirit, and they would pay the price for that arrogance. Captain James Hawkins stood on the bridge of the U.S. Valiant, his eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space beyond. He had faced countless dangers before, but none like this. The weight of Earth's future hung on his shoulders, and yet there was no fear in him. His expression was calm, focused, as if he had already made peace with whatever outcome lay ahead. The U.S. Valiant, along with the rest of the Relic fleet, was humanity's last chance for survival. It was an old ship, covered in scars from past battles, and yet it was still here, still ready for one final stand. His crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and eager rookies, moved around the bridge with purpose. There was a sense of unity in the air, a silent understanding that this battle would be like no other. They weren't just fighting for Earth. They were fighting for the legacy of those who had gone before them. They were fighting to show the universe that humanity would never go quietly into the night. "Status report," Captain Hawkins said, his voice steady but carrying the weight of command. Lieutenant Anna Williams, a young but capable officer, quickly turned from her console. "All systems are online, sir. Cloaking device is activated. AI interface is functioning, and the weapons are ready. We're good to go." Hawkins nodded, his eyes scanning the crew. They were an eclectic group, each with their own story, their own history, but together they were united in a single purpose. As a team, they were ready to face whatever the alien empire had in store for them. "All hands, prepare for battle," Hawkins ordered, his voice cutting through the tension that had filled the air. The crew responded immediately, their movements swift and coordinated. There was no time for hesitation, no room for doubt. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. As the crew readied themselves, the rest of the Relic fleet began to stir. One by one, the old warships, relics of a past long forgotten, powered up. The systems that had long been dormant hummed to life, sending vibrations through the hulls of the ships. Ancient cloaking devices were reactivated. The technology once thought obsolete now became their greatest advantage. The alien empire, confident in their technological superiority, had no idea what was about to hit them. The U.S. Valiant wasn't just any old ship. It was the embodiment of humanity's resolve, a symbol of everything they had fought for. The ship's hull was battered and scarred, but its heart still beat with the determination of the crew inside. Hawkins had seen this ship through countless upgrades, patching it up with whatever technology was available, bringing it back to life with the sheer willpower of the human spirit. Cloaking device is at full power, Lieutenant Williams reported again, her voice tinged with a sense of awe. We've got the element of surprise. Hawkins nodded again, but his mind wasn't on the cloaking device. He was thinking of the men and women who had sacrificed their lives for Earth's survival, of the many battles fought and lost. Their sacrifice was not in vain. They had laid the foundation for this moment, and now it was up to him and his crew to finish what had been started. A brief flashback flickered in Hawkins' mind. He remembered the day the U.S. Valiant was first commissioned, when it was nothing more than a rusting shell of a ship. He remembered the faces of the crew, some of them fresh-faced recruits, others veterans who had seen it all. Together, they had rebuilt the Valiant breath by breath, turning it into something that could still stand up to the might of the galaxy's greatest empires. But it wasn't just the ship that had been rebuilt. It was the spirit of humanity that had been restored. The Relic fleet, thought to be nothing more than a collection of old, outdated ships, had one thing that the aliens could never predict: the power of human will. A memory of Bonner, a young officer who had died in an earlier conflict, flashed in Hawkins' mind. The pain of losing a comrade never got easier, but Bonner had died fighting, and that was something to be proud of. Hawkins could still hear Bonner's voice, full of optimism, in his head. "We can do this, Captain. We'll make sure Earth survives." The words echoed in Hawkins' mind as he sat in the chair, his resolve hardening. The ship hummed with power as the crew went to work. Their hearts beat as one, and despite their lack of advanced technology compared to the alien forces, they knew they had something far more powerful: their shared determination. Through the cockpit windows, Earth appeared in the distance, glowing softly against the black void of space. To the crew, Earth was more than just a planet. It was their home, their heritage, and they would do anything to protect it. The stars above them seemed to shine just a little brighter, a silent promise that they would fight to the very end. Outside the U.S. Valiant, the alien fleet continued to approach, undeterred and confident in their imminent victory. They had no reason to believe anything could stand in their way. After all, the Relic fleet had no chance against the advanced weaponry and ships that made up the alien forces. The aliens saw no reason to even waste time with subtlety. They moved quickly, their ships a blur of motion as they prepared to obliterate Earth in a single swift strike. But what the aliens didn't know was that the humans had been waiting for this moment. They knew they were the underdogs, but they had one advantage the aliens could never understand: their will to survive. Every soldier, every officer aboard the U.S. Valiant had come from a long line of fighters. They had faced obstacles far greater than this and still stood tall. The Relic fleet wasn't just a collection of old warships. It was a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit. The crew stood at their posts, waiting for the moment when they would spring into action. Hawkins stood at the front of the bridge, his eyes fixed on the vast enemy fleet. The time to fight was now. He gave a nod to Lieutenant Williams. "Prepare to engage the enemy," he said. As the crew sprang into action, Hawkins' thoughts turned back to his fallen comrades, the ones who had laid the groundwork for this moment. Their memories fueled his determination. With every passing second, the tension on the bridge rose, the hum of the engines growing louder, matching the beat of the crew's hearts. As the U.S. Valiant and the rest of the Relic fleet prepared for the final battle, the contrast between the two forces could not have been more striking. On one side, the alien fleet, sleek and advanced, ready to crush anything in its path. On the other, a fleet of old warships, powered by the will of their crews, prepared to defend their planet at all costs. The stage was set. The Relic fleet, fueled by the hidden power of humanity's resolve, would soon face the full might of the alien empire. The aliens might have laughed at Earth's ancient ships, but they would soon learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. The distant stars gleamed coldly as the alien fleet made its descent toward Earth. The ships, sleek and menacing, were equipped with cutting-edge weaponry. laser cannons that could vaporize entire cities in seconds, missiles with enough power to destroy entire continents, and fleets of drones that could tear through anything in their path. The alien commanders were confident that their victory over humanity would be swift, almost effortless. Earth, with its primitive defenses and outdated technology, would fall within hours. The fleet of alien warships loomed in the distance, preparing to launch the assault. Their commanders discussed strategy in low, confident tones, their eyes glimmering with the certainty of an easy victory. They were prepared for a one-sided slaughter. Humanity, they believed, was no match for their military might. Earth's defenses were laughable, old warships that could barely hold their own in a skirmish, let alone fend off a technologically advanced empire. But what the aliens didn't understand, what they failed to consider, was the one thing that had always been humanity's greatest weapon: resolve. And the Relic fleet, thought to be no more than an archaic collection of rusty ships, still carried that legacy within its hull. On the bridge of the U.S. Valiant, Captain James Hawkins stood still, watching the alien fleet as it closed in on Earth. His face was a mask of calm, though his thoughts raced. The stakes couldn't have been higher. He had no illusions about the odds they were facing. The humans had no illusions about being the underdogs in this battle, but they had something that the aliens didn't expect: an unshakable belief in their ability to fight back, no matter the odds. "All systems are ready," Lieutenant Williams said, her voice calm but edged with anticipation. "Cloaking device is holding steady. We're good to go." Captain Hawkins gave a single nod. "Activate the cloak. Let's show them what we can do." The battle began with shocking speed. Just as the alien fleet reached Earth's orbit, ready to unleash its devastating firepower, the Relic fleet, hidden until that very moment, burst forth from its stealth, emerging from the cloak that had kept them hidden. The shock of the sudden appearance of the ancient ships left the alien fleet momentarily stunned. The humans were quick to strike, launching their first wave of missiles and energy beams with deadly precision. The U.S. Valiant fired first, a barrage of energy blasts and missile strikes aimed directly at the closest alien ships. The alien fleet had no time to react, no time to defend themselves against the unexpected assault. The explosion of energy was visible from Earth's surface, a series of brilliant flashes as the Relic ships tore into the alien forces. The aliens had never expected such a response. They had underestimated the humans, thinking their old ships were nothing more than scrap metal. But the Relic fleet wasn't just a collection of old, rusted ships. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, determination, and willpower. The Relic ships, though ancient, had been upgraded with technology scavenged from previous wars. Their engines roared to life, their weapons firing with precision and force. Though the ships were old, their agility surprised the aliens. They could maneuver with surprising speed, weaving through the chaos of the battlefield and evading the alien fleet's counterattacks. As the battle raged on, explosions rocked the vacuum of space. The once still void was now alive with energy blasts, missiles, and debris. The bright, violent flashes of explosions illuminated the dark expanse as the alien and human fleets collided. Alien ships crumpled under the assault, their advanced technology no match for the determined onslaught from the humans. The aliens, so sure of their superiority, had failed to predict how well humanity would fight when pushed to the brink. For every alien warship that fell, for every explosion that lit up the void, the humans fought harder. The U.S. Valiant was at the forefront of the charge, its old hull taking a pounding, but its crew pressing forward relentlessly. The crew of the U.S. Valiant fired back with everything they had. The shields flickered under the impact of enemy fire, but they held. Hawkins gripped the edge of his command chair, his eyes scanning the chaos on the view screen. But the battle wasn't over. As the humans pressed their advantage, the alien commanders began to regroup. They had underestimated humanity's fighting spirit, but now they were beginning to realize just how costly that mistake was. The alien fleet quickly reoriented, countering the humans' unexpected assault with renewed aggression. The aliens began to deploy their advanced fighters, sleek, deadly ships that swarmed like locusts, targeting the human fleet with brutal precision. Despite their best efforts, the Relic fleet continued to hold strong. Human ships, though old and outnumbered, fought back with a kind of desperation that the aliens could not match. As missile after missile whizzed past, the alien ships found themselves struggling to land a decisive blow on the humans. Every time the aliens thought they had an advantage, the humans would outmaneuver them, using the Relic ship's surprising agility to their advantage. But just as it seemed the tide might turn, disaster struck. The U.S. Valiant took a direct hit from an alien fighter's plasma cannon. The bridge shook violently as the impact reverberated through the ship. Sparks flew from the control panels, and alarms blared as the ship's shields flickered and weakened. Captain Hawkins gripped the armrest of his chair, his knuckles white. "Damage report," Hawkins barked, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Shields are down to 30%, Captain." Lieutenant Williams shouted over the noise. "We're taking fire from multiple angles." Hawkins didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. The battle for Earth was on the line. He could see the alien fleet closing in, their ships ready to unleash another devastating barrage. "We can't let them take us down," Hawkins said, his voice low but firm. "Order all ships to form up. We fight until the end." The battle raged on. The U.S. Valiant was wounded, its hull scarred from the enemy's attacks, but it wasn't out yet. The Relic fleet fought with everything they had. Every shot, every maneuver, every last ounce of energy was put into the battle. The stakes had never been higher, but the humans refused to back down. With each passing moment, the humans struck back harder. The aliens began to realize just how costly their underestimation had been. The tide was turning. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting with everything they had to prove they belonged in the galaxy. As the battle reached its climax, the fate of Earth still hung in the balance. The U.S. Valiant and the rest of the Relic fleet stood against an overwhelming enemy, their shields weakening, their resources stretched thin. But the resolve of the human crew remained unshaken. The aliens had laughed at humanity's old ships. They had mocked Earth's defenses, confident in their advanced technology and their numbers. But in the first clash, the humans had shown them something they would never forget: the power of human will. And as the U.S. Valiant fired its next round of missiles into the heart of the alien fleet, it became clear that the aliens had underestimated their adversaries. The battle for Earth was just beginning, and the aliens were about to learn a hard lesson: never underestimate the power of the underdog. The battle for Earth had raged on for what felt like an eternity. The sky above was alive with the flames of war, and the vast expanse of space was an endless canvas of destruction. Human ships, old and battered, fought valiantly against the alien fleet, but despite their surprising successes, the tide of battle still seemed uncertain. Yet, in the heart of the chaos, Captain James Hawkins remained focused. He could see the strategy starting to unfold, the way the humans had turned the alien forces' overconfidence against them. But now, the time had come for a daring move, one that could shift the balance of the war in humanity's favor. "We need to take down their flagship," Captain Hawkins said, his voice cutting through the din of the battle. His crew had been through so much already, but he knew this next move could change everything. "If we can disable it, we can cripple their command structure. The rest of the fleet will fall apart." Lieutenant Williams nodded sharply, already understanding the gravity of the situation. "It's going to be risky, Captain. If we get caught, we'll be sitting ducks." Hawkins' gaze hardened. "We don't have a choice. We're either going to win this, or we're going to lose everything. Prepare for the cloaking maneuver." The U.S. Valiant powered down all unnecessary systems, plunging the ship into near-total darkness. The hum of machinery was replaced by an eerie silence. Hawkins' plan was simple but incredibly dangerous. to use the ship's cloaking device to slip past the alien fleet undetected, getting within striking range of the enemy flagship. Once in position, they would fire everything they had at the flagship's weak points. It was a gamble, but it was their best shot. The alien flagship, once an indomitable force, loomed large in the distance, its shields glowing brightly as it led the charge against humanity. It was protected by countless smaller ships, each one bristling with weapons, and there was no easy way to break through. But the humans had an advantage. They had the element of surprise. As the U.S. Valiant maneuvered through the chaos of battle, cloaked and unseen, Hawkins could feel the weight of the moment. His heart pounded in his chest, but he focused on the task at hand. This was no longer just about survival. It was about striking at the heart of the alien invaders. The enemy flagship slowly came into view, its massive form visible on the display. The humans were now in position. Hawkins gave the order, and in a split second, the crew unleashed a deadly barrage. A torrent of missiles and energy beams erupted from the U.S. Valiant, striking the alien flagship's exposed flanks with unrelenting force. Explosions rang out across the hull of the flagship as the weapons systems began to short-circuit and fail. For the first time, the mighty alien vessel was vulnerable. The battle raged on, but for the first time, the aliens began to feel the sting of defeat. The flagship, which had once seemed indestructible, was now helpless, its weapons silenced, its shields barely holding up against the human assault. It was a moment of triumph for humanity, but that victory would come at a great cost. Direct hit to the flagship's power core. Lieutenant Williams called out, her voice filled with disbelief. "They're not responding. We've got them." The relief on the bridge was palpable, but before anyone could truly celebrate, the ship suddenly lurched forward, sending crew members stumbling. A violent explosion rocked the U.S. Valiant, shaking the ship to its core. Hawkins was thrown from his seat as the lights flickered and alarms blared. "Report," Hawkins shouted, his voice ragged as he struggled to regain his footing. "Shields down to 10%, Captain," shouted Lieutenant Marcus, the weapons officer, his voice tight with panic. "We've taken serious damage. We're sitting ducks if we don't act fast." But Hawkins' attention was not on the damage to the ship. His eyes locked on the crew around him, and he saw the fear in their eyes. It was a reminder that even in the midst of victory, they were still under threat. He needed to keep them focused. "Bonner," Hawkins called, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Take a team and go to the lower decks. We need to reroute power to the shields. We can't take another hit like that." Bonner, one of Hawkins' closest allies, nodded without hesitation. His face was grim, but his resolve was unshakable. Bonner had been with Hawkins from the very beginning, fighting alongside him through countless battles. He was one of the few who had made it this far, and Hawkins trusted him with his life. As Bonner and his team headed toward the lower decks, the tension aboard the U.S. Valiant was palpable. The crew knew they were close to victory, but they also knew the risks. The enemy flagship was on the verge of destruction, but so was their own ship. In the control room, Hawkins watched the damage reports come in, his thoughts heavy with the knowledge that each second counted. The alien flagship continued to burn, its once imposing presence now a shell of its former self. The humans had struck hard, but they hadn't finished the job yet. Hawkins' crew, knowing the importance of the mission, pressed on, determined to make sure the flagship was destroyed. But as they prepared for the final assault, a new challenge arose. Suddenly, a sharp explosion rang out, and Bonner's voice crackled through the communication system. "Captain, we've rerouted power to the shields, but it's not enough. We need more time." Hawkins' heart sank as he heard the urgency in Bonner's voice. The situation was spiraling out of control, and Bonner knew it. It was at that moment that Hawkins made the hardest decision of his life. He had to save his crew. He had to ensure the flagship's destruction, no matter the cost. "Bonner, listen to me," Hawkins said, his voice calm but resolute. "I need you to take that last step. "You're the only one who can do it." Bonner's voice came through the comms, thick with emotion. "Captain, no, I can't." But Hawkins cut him off, his decision final. "You have to. For the crew. For humanity." In a final act of bravery, Bonner did what no one else could do. He led his team to the heart of the alien flagship's power core, planting the explosive charges that would ensure its total destruction. But as the countdown reached its final seconds, Bonner knew he wouldn't make it back in time. With a final defiant grin, Bonner sealed his fate. "It's been an honor, Captain," he said. The explosion that followed shook the very fabric of space. The alien flagship crumbled under the force of the blast, its once imposing structure now reduced to debris. The remaining alien fleet faltered, their command structure shattered. But as the alien flagship burned and exploded, Hawkins could only feel a deep, painful sorrow. Bonner, his closest friend, was gone. The U.S. Valiant had won, but at a cost. The crew had proven themselves as warriors, as survivors, but the price of victory had been steep. As the remnants of the alien fleet retreated, scattered and broken, Captain Hawkins stood alone on the bridge. The battle was over, but the cost of their success would haunt him forever. The humans had turned the tide, but it was Bonner's sacrifice that had truly won the day. And as the U.S. Valiant limped away from the wreckage of the alien flagship, Captain Hawkins knew that this victory was bittersweet. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown the galaxy something the aliens would never forget: the power of human sacrifice and determination. The vast emptiness of space was now painted with the remnants of battle. The once proud alien fleet was in disarray, broken and scattered by the relentless assault of the human Relic fleet. The U.S. Valiant had struck a devastating blow to the alien command structure, but the battle was far from over. As the humans regrouped and tended to their wounded, a chilling new presence began to emerge from the depths of the alien ranks. The aliens, reeling from their losses, had one final weapon, one that had been kept hidden until now. It was a weapon of immense power, a machine so advanced that it seemed to defy the very laws of nature. A colossal warship, fully controlled by an artificial intelligence, appeared on the battlefield. It was a monstrous creation, its design sleek and imposing, radiating an aura of invincibility. This was no ordinary machine. It was a living, breathing intelligence, a cold, calculating entity that had no need for emotions, no mercy for its enemies. The AI was the pinnacle of the alien empire's belief in their own superiority. They had placed their faith in this machine, believing it to be the ultimate weapon capable of crushing any resistance. It was not just a warship. It was the embodiment of their arrogance and their unyielding desire to dominate the galaxy. As the AI-controlled warship emerged from the darkness of space, the humans could only watch in awe and horror. It was unlike anything they had ever faced before. Its sheer size was enough to dwarf the remaining human ships, and its weapons systems were unlike anything the humans had ever encountered. The U.S. Valiant and its fleet were battered, exhausted, and outgunned. They had already fought valiantly, but now they faced an enemy that seemed insurmountable. Captain James Hawkins stood at the command center, his eyes fixed on the screen displaying the enormous AI warship. He had seen countless battles, but nothing like this. He knew that the odds were stacked against them, but one thing kept him grounded: his unwavering belief in humanity's resilience. "All ships, form up," Hawkins ordered, his voice steady, though it carried the weight of the moment. "This is it. We've come this far, and we're not going to back down now." The crew of the U.S. Valiant knew what was at stake. They had fought for their lives, for the survival of Earth, but this battle was different. The AI warship wasn't just a weapon. It represented everything the alien empire stood for. It was the cold, unfeeling heart of their superiority complex. Defeating it wasn't just about winning the battle. It was about proving that humanity had a place in this galaxy, that they were more than just a speck in the vastness of space. Captain Hawkins stood in front of his crew, his face grim but determined. He knew that the battle ahead would be their most difficult yet, but he also knew that they had something the aliens could never understand: heart. They fought not just to survive, but to protect their home, their families, and their way of life. They fought for a future that wasn't ruled by machines or cold calculation. "I know we're all tired," Hawkins said, his voice ringing with conviction. "We've lost friends, and we've lost ships, but we haven't lost the fight. This AI might think it's invincible, but we're going to prove them wrong. We are human. We don't give up. We fight until the end." His words echoed in the hearts of his crew. The final stand had begun. The remaining Relic ships, battered but not broken, moved into position, lining up behind the U.S. Valiant as they prepared to face the AI-controlled warship. The battle line was set. As the AI warship advanced, it unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, sending shockwaves through space. The human ships scrambled to evade the deadly fire, but the AI was precise, calculating, and ruthless. It didn't miss. The U.S. Valiant shook under the assault, its hull groaning as the alien weapons struck with pinpoint accuracy. But the humans were not deterred. They fought back with everything they had left. The U.S. Valiant fired its remaining missiles, while its energy beams cut through the dark void, striking at the AI warship's shields. The Relic ships fired their ancient weapons, using alien tech that had been scavenged from past battles. The ships were old, their systems glitching and struggling to keep up, but they fought with the fury of humanity's last hope. The battle raged on, a chaotic dance of destruction. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as the AI warship retaliated, its weapons slicing through the human fleet like a knife through butter. The odds were overwhelming, but Hawkins and his crew refused to yield. They pushed forward, their resolve hardening with every hit, every loss. They knew they were up against a superior force, but they also knew that this was a fight they couldn't afford to lose. Amidst the chaos, Captain Hawkins remained a beacon of hope. He directed his crew with precision, guiding them through the confusion. But even he could feel the weight of the situation. The AI warship was devastating. It seemed unstoppable. Its shields were virtually impenetrable, and its weapons tore through the human fleet with brutal efficiency. But as the battle wore on, Hawkins began to notice something that gave him hope. The AI, for all its power, was predictable. It calculated every move, every strike, but it lacked the one thing that the humans had in abundance: unpredictability. The humans could adapt, change tactics, and surprise their enemies. The AI was a machine. It followed logic and strategy, but it couldn't anticipate the heart and ingenuity that the humans brought to the battlefield. Hawkins realized that the AI had a flaw. Its programming was rigid, inflexible. It relied too heavily on its initial strategy, and that was something the humans could exploit. The AI warship might have been powerful, but it was still bound by its code, and that code could be broken. "All ships, follow my lead," Hawkins ordered. "We're going to hit them where they least expect it." The remaining human ships, despite their damage, repositioned themselves. They used every bit of stealth and surprise they had left, moving in unison to create a diversion. The AI warship, believing it had the upper hand, didn't notice the shift until it was too late. With a coordinated attack, the humans launched a final barrage, precise, overwhelming, and unexpected. The AI shield system flickered as the human missiles struck, exploiting the flaw in its programming. The AI warship's systems scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The final blow landed, and the massive warship shuddered violently before erupting in a massive explosion. The human fleet watched in awe as the AI-controlled behemoth was reduced to rubble, its cold, calculated presence no longer a threat. The battle was won. The AI had been defeated. But as the wreckage of the warship drifted into the void, the cost of victory was evident. The humans had lost many ships and many lives, but they had proven something that the alien empire could never understand. They had proven that no machine, no matter how advanced, could match the heart and spirit of humanity. Captain Hawkins stood on the bridge of the U.S. Valiant, his face weary but triumphant. The crew was battered, but they had done it. They had defeated the AI, and in doing so, they had proven their place in the galaxy. "We've won," Hawkins said softly, his voice filled with pride. "But this is just the beginning. The galaxy knows now what humanity is capable of." The human fleet, battered but unbroken, drifted away from the wreckage of the AI warship. The war was not over, but humanity had shown the galaxy that they would never back down. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. And in that victory they had earned their place in the stars. The battle was over, and the silence that followed was almost as deafening as the explosions that had rocked space just moments before. The alien fleet, once a formidable force that had advanced on Earth with the full might of their advanced technology, now lay shattered. Their leaderless ships retreated into the void, abandoning the battlefield in the wake of humanity's unexpected victory. The tide had turned, but it was not without a heavy price. Captain James Hawkins stood at the bridge of the U.S. Valiant, looking out at the debris that now filled the once pristine expanse of space. The victory was theirs, but the cost had been immense. The remnants of the human fleet, battered and broken, drifted in space, a stark contrast to the once mighty warships they had been. Many ships were so damaged that they would never be able to fight again. Some had been completely destroyed, their crews lost to the cold void of space. The U.S. Valiant, though still intact, bore the scars of the battle. The once pristine ship was now pockmarked with damage, its hull twisted and blackened from the intensity of the alien weapons. The ship's engines sputtered, struggling to keep the ship in orbit around Earth. But despite the damage, the ship remained a symbol of humanity's determination, a testament to the crew's resilience and the unyielding will to protect their home. Captain Hawkins sighed, a heavy weight settling on his shoulders. He had seen battles before, but this was different. This was a war that had pushed humanity to its limits, a fight that had taken everything from them. His thoughts drifted to his crew, the men and women who had stood by him through every moment of the battle. They had fought with everything they had, and many had paid the ultimate price. He thought of Bonner, his close friend and trusted officer, who had sacrificed his life to ensure the alien flagship's destruction. Bonner's death had been a turning point in the battle, a moment that had united the crew and given them the strength to push on. But the victory had come at a cost, and the pain of that loss still lingered. As Hawkins stared out into the cold expanse of space, his mind wandered to the greater implications of the battle. The aliens had underestimated humanity, thinking that their advanced technology and superior numbers would be enough to crush Earth. But the humans had proven them wrong. They had fought back with determination, using ingenuity and heart to overcome the odds. The victory was not just a military one. It was a triumph of human spirit. But in the back of Hawkins' mind, there was a lingering doubt. The aliens had been defeated, but the war was far from over. This was just the beginning. The sound of footsteps broke Hawkins from his thoughts, and he turned to see Commander Anderson approach. Anderson was one of the few remaining officers aboard the U.S. Valiant, and he too carried the weight of the battle on his shoulders. He looked as tired as Hawkins felt, but there was a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "We did it, Captain," Anderson said, his voice low but steady. "We've won." Hawkins nodded, but his gaze never wavered from the view of the retreating alien fleet. "Yes, but at what cost?" he muttered. Anderson didn't respond immediately. He knew what Hawkins meant. The victory was hollow. Yes, the alien threat had been repelled, but many had given their lives for that victory. The human fleet was in ruins, and Earth had lost many of its bravest soldiers. The price of victory was always high in war, but sometimes it felt too high to bear. The two men stood in silence, watching as the alien fleet disappeared into the depths of space. The human fleet, though still intact, was left in a state of disrepair. The ships that had survived were damaged beyond repair, their weapon systems failing, their engines sputtering. The U.S. Valiant itself was in no better shape. Its hull was scared, and many of its systems were offline, but it had held together, and that was something to be thankful for. As the alien ships retreated, the remnants of the human fleet began to move toward Earth. The battle was over, but the war was not. Hawkins knew that humanity had earned a brief respite, but they were not out of danger yet. There would be others who would challenge them, other empires who would see humanity's rise as a threat. The galaxy was vast, and Earth's place in it was still uncertain. The next few hours were spent salvaging what they could from the wreckage of the battle. The crew worked tirelessly to repair what they could, but it was clear that there was little left to fix. The Relic fleet, though victorious, was in ruins. Many of the ships had been rendered useless, their weapons systems fried, their engines destroyed. But despite the damage, the survivors were determined to push forward. They had won the battle, but the cost of that victory would be felt for years to come. As the U.S. Valiant and the other surviving ships made their way back to Earth's orbit, Hawkins couldn't help but reflect on the hard-fought battle that had brought them here. The alien forces had underestimated humanity, thinking that their advanced technology and superior numbers would be enough to defeat them. But the humans had fought back with everything they had. They had relied on their resourcefulness, their courage, and their will to survive. They had fought for their families, their homes, and their future. And in the end, that was what had made the difference. Hawkins turned away from the view of the retreating alien fleet and walked slowly to the center of the command deck. His crew, though battered and bruised, stood tall, their faces set with determination. They had fought through the toughest battle of their lives, and they had emerged victorious. But Hawkins could see the toll it had taken on them. They were all exhausted, physically and emotionally. Many of them had lost friends, family, and comrades. The weight of those losses would stay with them for a long time. "We've done it," Hawkins said, his voice filled with pride and sadness. "We've won, but the road ahead will be difficult. We've proven that humanity is strong, but we can't rest. There will always be threats out there. We have to stay vigilant for ourselves, for our families, and for the future of Earth."